My girlfriend let her drunk ex sleep on our couch at 2 a.m. When I questioned it, she looked at me like I was the problem and said, "He's going through a tough time, you need to be more understanding." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded, packed a bag, and walked out. I left her with her past. Literally. 3 days later, she called me in a panic. Because apparently, her ex never left. Now he was eating my food, using my Netflix, and treating my apartment like it was his. It was 2 a.m. when I first heard the knock. Slow, uneven, and loud enough to wake the dead. I was already half asleep, barely processing the sound, when I noticed my girlfriend wasn't beside me in bed. Before I could even ask what was going on, she appeared at the door, whispering urgently, "Just stay in the room, okay?" That's when I heard his voice. Slurred. Familiar. Laughing. Her ex. I sat up, stunned, not quite believing it. She led him inside like it was the most normal thing in the world, guiding his drunken stumble to our couch. Not her couch, ours. I walked out and saw him sprawled across the cushions, shoes still on, reeking of beer and bad decisions. He gave me a half-drunken nod and mumbled, "Yo, that's all. No apology. No explanation." And she looked at me and said, "He's going through a rough time. Just be understanding." Like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting her ex passed out in my living room at 2 in the damn morning. I didn't argue. Not then. I just stared at the man snoring on my couch, and the woman who used to claim she respected me, and I knew this wasn't just a bad night. This was the start of something worse. She stood there in the hallway, arms folded like I was the one being unreasonable. "He's going through a tough time," she said, as if that somehow justified letting her ex crash on our couch without asking me. "You need to be more understanding." Those words hit harder than I expected, not because of what she said, but how easily she said it. As if my opinion, my comfort, and my place in our home didn't matter anymore. I wasn't asking her to kick someone out into the cold. I was asking why the man she used to sleep with was now passed out, snoring in our living room, using a blanket I'd bought. The more I questioned it, the more defensive she became. "It's not like that," she insisted. "You're overreacting." But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I wasn't being jealous or controlling. I was being disrespected, plain and simple. She had crossed a boundary, and then blamed me for noticing it. I remember standing there, staring at her as she defended him, and realizing something painful. I wasn't her priority. I was convenient, stable, the one she could take for granted while she played savior to the man who broke her before I ever came into the picture. That's when I felt it, the snapping point. Quiet, clean, final. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a bag, and started packing. She followed me, still talking, still trying to explain why this wasn't a big deal. But I didn't respond. Because the moment you have to argue for basic respect, you've already lost something too important to stay. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't shout. I didn't even close the zipper too loudly. The bag I packed that night didn't just hold clothes. It held a decision I made in silence. Every shirt I folded was a step away from the man I was when I walked in. Every item tucked in was a memory I didn't want tainted by what had just happened. She stood near the doorway, arms crossed, demanding to know why I was being so dramatic, still brushing it off like it wasn't a betrayal. But that bag wasn't about dramatics. It was about dignity. I didn't argue anymore because I'd already been replaced in my own home by a drunken ex who got empathy and my spot on the couch, while I got lectures about being understanding. I grabbed my headphones, my charger, even the hoodie she used to steal on cold nights. I didn't leave behind anything I'd miss, because I wasn't just stepping out. I was stepping away from a version of love that asked me to be small, quiet, and okay with being second to someone who should have been long gone. When I walked out that door, she said nothing. Maybe she thought I'd cool off, that I'd be back once I got over it. But the truth was, my silence wasn't a pause. It was a goodbye. I didn't message. I didn't call. I didn't even check her socials. For 3 full days, I let the silence stretch, thick, deliberate, and unbroken. I stayed with a friend, went to work, kept my phone on silent. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I had nothing left to say. She'd made her priorities clear. The ex who showed up drunk in the middle of the night deserved compassion, while I, the man who shared a bed and a life with her, was expected to be more understanding. But on the third night, my phone lit up. It started with a missed call. Then another. Then a string of messages. Please pick up. I need to talk to you. This is getting out of hand. When I finally answered, her voice was shaky, frantic. He won't leave, she said. He's still here. He's eating your food, using your Netflix, wearing your hoodie. I don't know what to do. That's when the irony hit me harder than her betrayal ever could. She didn't just let him in. She made space for him. And now, he'd taken it. All of it. I stayed quiet for a moment, then calmly asked, "Is he more understanding now?" He didn't just crash on the couch for a night and stumble out the next morning. No, her ex made himself comfortable like he'd been invited to stay. And maybe, in some twisted way, he had been the first sign. My favorite hoodie on him. She sent a photo of the cat curled up beside someone's legs. I zoomed in. That was my hoodie. Then came the messages she didn't mean to send, him in the background eating chips I bought, lounging like he'd paid rent. He started using my Netflix, my Spotify, left beer cans on the coffee table, claimed the couch, then the remote, then the entire living room. And all she could say in her panicked texts was, "I didn't think he'd stay this long." Like he'd accidentally moved in. But what really burned? She let it happen. While I was gone, he was living the life I left behind, without lifting a finger. My space. My food. My comforts. Handed over to the guy she swore was just going through something. She didn't set boundaries. She didn't ask him to leave. She gave him the silence she once gave me, and that silence turned into permission. Her couch wasn't just his crash pad now. It was his kingdom. She thought she was being kind. Thought she was showing compassion. But compassion without boundaries? That's just chaos with a smile. When she let her drunk ex sleep on our couch, she didn't just offer him shelter, she offered him space in the life we built together. And when I left, I don't think she expected consequences. She figured I'd cool off and come back. But instead of cleaning up the mess, she doubled down and let him settle in. No rules. No timeline. Just vibes and excuses. He stopped being a guest and started acting like he belonged. Ordered takeout using the food apps I'd paid for. Turned our shared living room into his personal lounge. Even added his own toothbrush to the bathroom sink. She told a mutual friend she was giving him time to figure things out, but the truth was, she didn't have the courage to draw the line. She chose to avoid conflict, and in doing so, she handed him the keys to a life he didn't earn. By the time she realized she had lost control, it was too late. He wasn't crashing anymore. He was staying. And not because he needed to, but because she let him. She didn't rescue a friend. She adopted a parasite. When her name lit up my screen for the fourth time that day, I already knew what she wanted. The panic in her voice wasn't about missing me. It was about the mess she couldn't clean up on her own. She was overwhelmed. He wasn't just crashing for a night anymore. He'd unpacked, raided the fridge, changed the Wi-Fi name, and was now calling our place home. Suddenly, she remembered the man who kept boundaries, paid the bills, and respected the space. Suddenly, she wanted me back. But I wasn't coming back to fix her mistake. She made her choice the moment she told me to be more understanding. She understood his pain but dismissed my frustration. She invited chaos in and expected me to stay and make room for it. That's not a relationship, that's a circus, and I'm no clown. I left because I refused to be the man who stood quietly in the corner while his partner made reckless emotional decisions and called it empathy. She wanted a partner who didn't challenge her choices. What she needed was someone to clean up after them. And I wasn't applying for that job again. I wasn't coming back to help her evict the mistake she made. I'd already moved out and moved on. By the time the situation exploded, no one around her was surprised. Friends who had been too polite before were now blunt. You really let your ex move in? Her sister told her flat out, you made your bed, now your ex is sleeping in it, literally. The group chat that once buzzed with brunch plans and Netflix suggestions now only echoed with awkward silences and side conversations she was no longer part of. She had become the cautionary tale, the girl who threw away a stable relationship for a red-flagged nostalgia trip. Everyone saw it coming, except her. People had warned her, gently and not so gently, about the kind of guy her ex was. Unreliable. Manipulative. Always in some kind of crisis. But she romanticized his struggles, called him misunderstood, and painted him as a victim of circumstance rather than the architect of his own chaos. And when she had someone solid, someone present and respectful, she dismissed it like it was boring background noise. Now, she was surrounded by judgment, pity, and a drunk roommate who wouldn't leave. And through it all, she acted stunned, like life had pulled a fast one on her. But it hadn't. She just didn't listen. Didn't see. Didn't believe that the man she kept making excuses for would ever become her biggest problem. But the rest of us? We knew. While she was stuck explaining to friends why her ex wouldn't leave her couch, I was already settling into a new chapter, one where I wasn't begging for respect or competing with the past. I moved on with quiet confidence, reclaiming peace in a way that didn't need announcements or revenge. I found an apartment that felt like mine, no memories haunting the walls, no second-guessing every decision. I reconnected with people who actually valued stability, kindness, and maturity. The contrast was immediate. There was no drama, no gaslighting, just peace. Meanwhile, she was learning something life had tried to teach her before, but she never listened. That when you fail to set boundaries, you end up living with the consequences. Literally. Her ex, the one she swore was just passing through, had made himself at home. He was using my Netflix, eating my leftover snacks, even wearing my hoodie in one blurry Instagram story that got back to me. She had traded a relationship with a future for a situation with a squatter. And the irony? She thought I was overreacting when I walked away. Now she was the one being walked on, by the same guy she once defended. That wasn't karma. That was cause and effect. I moved on, built something better. And she was still sitting in the wreckage, finally learning that love without boundaries is just chaos wearing a smile. She lost a boyfriend and gained a freeloader, and the funniest part is, she didn't even realize the trade was happening until it was too late. She went from mocking my overreaction to begging for advice on how to get him out of her apartment. Apparently, he stopped helping with anything, refused to leave, and even started inviting his friends over. Her sanctuary had turned into a frat house, while I, on the other hand, had built a calm, happy life on the other side of her mistake. She called me once more. Just once. Her voice low, apologetic, different. She said she missed me. That she didn't expect it to go this far. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply said, "You made your choice. Now you're living with it." Because that was the truth. I wasn't her safety net anymore. I had stopped being that the second she prioritized her ex's chaos over our commitment. In the end, I didn't lose anything. I gained clarity. Peace. A reminder that walking away from someone who doesn't respect you is never a mistake. It's a win. She lost a boyfriend. And gained the full-time guest she thought she was helping.